Good afternoon. My name is Tina Nybo Jensen and I'm Senior Coordinator Governance Relations at GRI. Welcome to this meeting of the Global Sustainability Standards Board, known by its acronym, the GSSB, held on the 22nd of March 2018. This virtual meeting is being hosted from the GRI Secretariat Office in Amsterdam, the Netherlands. Please note that all public GSSB meetings are being recorded, and you can find the audio recording on the GSSB webpage, along with high-level summaries of previous GSSB meetings. Present from the GRI Secretariat today are Bastian Bock, Chief of Standards, Laura Espinaz, Senior Manager Standards, Anna Krotova, Manager Standards, Gillian Balaban, Team Assistant Standards, and Pamela Carpius, Senior Coordinator Governance Relations. We'll now start with a roll call. Attila Yalikaya. Sorry, Attila, do we have you on the line? Just get back to Attila. Evan Harvey, do we have you on the line?
I am here, present.
Hi, Evan, thank you. Jürgen Buchsbaum.
Yes, I'm here, but the connection became very bad again.
Okay, thank you. And Kent Swift?
I am here.
Thank you. And Kirsten Margrethe Hove?
Present.
Thank you. And Michelle Washer?
Present.
Thank you. And Nankumar Vadakapat?
Present. Thank you.
Thank you. Robin Lisa?
Present.
Thank you. And Sulema Bioli?
Hello, I'm present.
Thank you. And Tony Moe?
Yes, I'm here.
Thank you. And Vincent Kong?
Yes, I'm here, present.
Thank you. And Kaya? Do we have you on the line?
Why don't you do it now, because
No. And then I'll just take the GSSB chair, Judy Gushevsky.
Yes, I'm here. Hello.
Thank
This
you.
is Dwight Justice. I'm here too.
Thank you, Dwight. Thank you for joining. Thank you, everyone. And then we would like to note that Attila Yalikaya is likely to join us a bit later, and Julia Wilson sent her apologies to this meeting. I'll now hand to the chair, Judy Gushevsky, to open the meeting.
Hello, thank you very much, Tina. And thank you to everyone on the line for joining today once again for our regular virtual meeting of the GSSB. Welcome also to anyone who may be listening down the line to us. As you are aware from our agenda, we have quite a short meeting this time, and this is largely because we have our in-person meeting coming up in a couple of weeks, where we will have a great deal more time together to go through many more items and deliverables. So we only have a few things that we need to get through today. I believe that there have not been any other business items that have been raised from among the members. Is that correct, Tina?
That's correct. I haven't received any.
Okay. Okay. Well, unless someone has any pressing items to raise at the end of today's meeting, then we really ought to be completing this call in 45 minutes or so. So I'd be happy if we could take a look at the agenda as the first item of business. So there are a few things that we have to do today which essentially revolve around approval of certain documents. We have to approve our summary of our February virtual meeting, which I hope will be a quick matter. We will have a larger update from the Standards Division, and then we have two project proposal documents that need to be completed and signed off in their final form so that we can get going with those projects. And those are the waste disclosures, and there's a standard interpretation disclosure for GRI 401-1, which both of which have been under discussion for some time with us, and they should be in a position to complete and sign off. Are there any questions on the agenda today or any items that you'd like to raise? Okay, hearing none, then I think we can carry on with the first item, which is the approval, and here are the scheduled approvals that we have. We have the first is to approve the meeting summary of our 22nd of February virtual meeting. Is there any discussion of the meeting summary that has been circulated? Any additions or edits? Okay, it doesn't sound like there are any problems with this document. So in the absence of any discussion or objection, then I will take it that we have approved that document. Okay, great, thank you. I'm going to turn it over to Bastian now for a standards division update. Bastian?
Thank you, Judy. And yeah, the colleagues in Amsterdam, if I can ask them to put the next slide up, great. Thank you for that. So I will talk briefly today about the activities that are currently underway. This is structured around the main standards-related projects, and I really only want to spend 5 minutes. If there are any questions, please feel free to ask them. And also for the GSB sponsors, if you want to make any remarks around the projects that you are involved in specifically, please feel free to do so. We are in the very final stages of the water and occupational health and safety projects, and basically what it comes down to now is the final fatal flaw review by the project working groups, and this is all geared towards making the recommendations of the working groups and the final standards available for approval at the in-person meeting of the GSB in April, and importantly the documents available next week as per due process 2 weeks in advance of your meeting. As you can imagine, this is always a rather hectic final stage of a process where the nuance is still debated, but it is important to say that we're really down to nuance at this stage. Important clarifications of granular on the granular level, mostly, as well as some of these things that usually come up when you see a standard in final form, and the experts involved double check whether the intent that they had initially discussed is carried through in the right way across the whole standard. So very positive developments there. Also, I think I should report back that we see still a great level of engagement by the project working group members, and that is always also a good indication for the thoroughness of the process, but importantly also that we were able to keep them interested in delivering a great outcome. We will later today, in a couple of minutes, look at the project proposal on revising the waste disclosures. Both the project proposal for waste as well as spills and leaks was forwarded to the governance bodies as per due process, and we've built feedback for the waste proposal already into what we asked you to prove today. Anna will speak to the waste proposal in a moment. Last week, we have brought together for the first time in an in-person meeting the Human Rights Technical Committee. We had a successful meeting in Amsterdam, covered a lot of ground. The GSB sponsors, Dwight and Sulema, were present as well. And I think I can report back that also that project takes a very positive direction. There will be, I think, on multiple levels, the implications for the overall work program of GRI. It's the number of standards affected. It is certainly the discussion about report content and specifically materiality that will be raised in the recommendations of the working group. But we will provide more detail on that in the April meeting as an update. We're, as of now, and I'm sitting here together with Kent, in a meeting with the Text Technical Committee. This is also the first and as currently per schedule, only in-person meeting of that committee. And we are into the second day of the meeting, and what we're seeing is a lot more agreement from the different constituencies on where we are headed with text disclosure and what constitutes good practice there that should be formalized in a standard by GRI. And I think if I had to summarize what we've learned over the past day is that we're probably in the position to draft a standard, which was one of the questions that the GSB has laid out for us. It wasn't quite clear whether we would actually have the right contents and more importantly, the consensus between constituencies to move ahead with that. And I think where we see the discussions right now, we will continue this project by drafting an action standard for review of the GSB and then the decisions on how to continue this project. Last but not least, I should mention that we have over the past week started to roll out a registration system, an online registration system for the GRI standards reports to enable the reporting organizations to live up to the reporting requirement to notify GRI about the existence of a GRI standards report, which is a requirement in the GRI standards. We're currently transferring all reports that have been in GRI's overall database that are GRI standards based into this new system. We ask companies to reconfirm the detail of that. In the past, we had a system that was not, that in most cases did not involve the companies confirming the detail of the record that we were holding at GRI about the report. And the new system actually is built on the proposition that companies report directly to GRI or notify GRI directly, which will enable us to also have that direct relationship with them in terms of updating them about changes to the standards and so on. I keep it at that and want to open for questions if there are any. Thank you.
Would anyone like to raise a question? Or for that matter, I'd be very happy to hear from any of the GSSB members who have been involved in any of these various activities if they think that anything bears adding to the report that Bastian has just given us. I'm not hearing any, Bastian, so I think that's a useful, quick summary. Is there any reason why we can't go on to the next item on our agenda?
Not from my side. Thank you, Judy.
Okay. Very good. Anna, would you like to talk to us about the GRI waste disclosures? This is item 2 on the agenda and the final project proposal, which we would like to have GSSB formal sign off on today.
Yes, thank you, Judy, and good afternoon, everyone. Excuse me, we have a technical issue. Can you help me? Okay. You have already reviewed this proposal, the draft proposal, during your last meeting in February, and I'm only left to say that we have received positive feedback from the GRI board as advised by the Stakeholder Council, who were in support of this proposal. They have suggested that we make a couple of adjustments related to including examples of measures to design out waste, as well as examples of negative impacts of waste on the environment, which we have included, and these are changes that we have highlighted on lines 35 and 65. The GRI board has also suggested that we consider the focus on various waste types, such as plastic, e-waste, in the scope of the project, which we will carry over or pass on to the project working group when they debate the final scope and decide on the final scope of the review. I do not have anything else to add to this, so I will just pass it over or hand it over to you, Judy, to guide us through the approval.
Okay. As you have all been aware, we've discussed the project proposal for this topic a number of times. It's gone through a little bit of improvement, a little bit of iteration, and we've had some suggestions received from the board and the stakeholder council on this, which have been taken into account. Is there any discussion from among GSSB members as to this final project proposal? Any concerns about it moving forward and being published on our website? Any discussion? Well, I'm happy to say that there doesn't seem to be any, so I believe we have done our job up to this point, Anna, and thank you very much for all the efforts behind this. I think we can conclude that this is, in fact, now approved by the GSSB and can be put into place.
Great, thank you, Judy, and thank you, the GSSB. And I just wanted to add that Michel Wachir has confirmed his willingness to be the sponsor for this project, so we're very excited to work together. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'd like to also just say that Nankumar Vadikapat has made a comment about the water project working group and the standards team. He says that they did an excellent job in evolving the new standards, and as GSSB sponsor, he says, I once again thank all of them involved in developing this new standard. So that's some appreciation from the GSSB sponsor. Thank you both to the project working group and to the standards division. Okay, next, Laura, please talk to us about this is the proposal on the standard interpretation disclosure for 401-1.
Thank you, Judy. So this is item 3 of the meeting papers, and it's a draft project proposal for issuing a standard interpretation on disclosure 4011, which is a disclosure on the rates of employee turnover and new hires. So we presented this query to you at the last meeting, and back then the GSSB agreed that the standards division could go ahead and draft a project proposal for this and share that directly with the board and the SC for their feedback, which is one of the requirements in the due process, and that we would do it in that way in order to meet the timeline that we presented to you last time with respect to the other standard interpretation the GSSB will be issuing on making a GRI reference claim. So there is no need to have this formally approved by the GSSB today, but we nevertheless want to present the project proposal to you and gather any comments or questions. So as a way of recap, a few users of the GRI standards have flagged that the required methodology in the GRI standards for calculating these rates is incorrect. At the moment, disclosure 4011, clause 2.1, is asking companies to calculate the rates of employee turnover and new hires by using the total number of employees at the end of the reporting period. And the users have flagged that these rates should be calculated by either using the average number of employees or the number of employees at the beginning of the reporting period. But in any case, not by using the total number of employees at the end of the period, as the GRI standards are suggesting. Upon an initial research, the standards division confirmed that indeed most of the methodologies available use either the average number of employees or the number of employees at the beginning of the period. And that's why we flagged this item to you last time as one item which could potentially benefit from a standard interpretation. So following the meeting in February, the standards division went ahead and we developed a draft project proposal for this interpretation, and we shared that directly with the board and the SC for their feedback. We're presenting this to you today as well for any comments and questions. We will not go through the process, steps, timeline, and content structure of the interpretation. because it follows the same format that the GSSB discussed last month related to the other interpretation on the GRI reference claim. But we're happy to take any comments or questions on anything that has been presented in the project proposal. Next to this, the Standards Division, together with GSSB members, have been conducting some research and consultation with experts on available methodologies for calculating the rates and to help validate or give input into the GSSB decision making on this input. And we will share a bit of the research we are conducting in a moment. In terms of the next steps, we will implement any feedback from the board and the SC and the GSSB on the project proposal and the standard interpretation itself. We will continue with the research and consultation with the aim of submitting the final project proposal and interpretation to the GSSB next week for discussion and approval at the in-person meeting in April. And that will go together with the other interpretation on the GRI reference claim. So essentially, the standard interpretation will clarify that it is no longer required for companies to follow the required methodology in the GRI standard for disclosure 401(1), and to help the GSSB validate that decision, we are consulting other methodologies and experts to confirm that indeed that methodology is not correct. Initially, with the help of a GSSB member, we reached out to the ILO, in particular the ILO Statistics Office, to see if they had this methodology available. And they've replied that since they look more at the macro level, they don't have a methodology available for these particular metrics that GRI has. So we have looked at other statistics offices at the national level. So we're looking at the US Bureau of Labor Statistics. We're looking also at human resources institutes. For example, the Society for Human Resource Management, as well as other reporting standards, such as the standards by SASB, the IRIS catalog of social impact investing metrics, etc. So we are going through those sources and compiling these methodologies, and so far they confirm what we found initially last month, and we will be presenting this to you next week together with the standard interpretation. So if there are any additional experts or sources that the GSSB would like to recommend for us to consult with, we're happy to hear those, as well as any questions or comments that you have on the draft project proposal. Thank you.
Thank you, Laura. Any questions about this proposed project at all? Again, it's one that we have discussed a number of times in different ways, and just to reiterate, the purpose of this is to correct an apparent error in the current standard, and thus to enable the implementation of it much more robustly by reporters. So are there any questions, comments, discussion? Okay, hearing none. Laura, I think we have signed off on this document, and we can publish it now and put it into practice.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, now what's next on our agenda? We are simply we're now into any other business. So this is the essentially the last thing for us to talk about today. I would like to put it to the GSSB members that we have, according to our rules and procedures, we have only a few days at this point to complete the proposed agenda for our in-person meeting. So if there are any suggestions or questions regarding topics that we will be covering on the agenda, would you please raise them in the next few days? And I wonder if one of the Standards Division team could actually just tell me which day it is that is the deadline. I want to say it's next Tuesday, but I'm not entirely sure if that's right.
Yeah, I think next Tuesday is good. Well, on Wednesday the materials will go out, so it would be preferred if until end of the week. So Friday this week we have input from GSSB members that we can firm up the agenda, and that would be appreciated.
Thank you. So
Really?
yes.
Sorry. Yeah, this is Sulema. Apologize, but I got some problems hearing you. Could you please repeat what you are asking for?
Yes, Sulema, I was saying that the deadline for finalizing our agenda for the in-person meeting is approaching quickly. So if any members have any suggestions for topics that they would like to have us cover when we meet in person in April, would you kindly identify those and forward them to the Standards Division by the end of this week?
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Okay, are there, as I said at the beginning of the meeting, I'm not aware of any AOB items that have been forwarded from other members. Are there any that come up now that anyone would like to discuss? Well, I'm not hearing any. So I think we have therefore concluded the business that we needed to cover during this meeting. And as we all knew, this was meant to be a very short meeting because of the in-person meeting coming up. Thank you all very much for your assistance in efficiently and diligently completing the tasks that we had on our plate today. And I look forward to seeing and speaking to most, if not all of you in Amsterdam in the second week of April. And I wish you all a very good conclusion to your day, wherever it happens to be.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Judy.
Thank
Goodbye,
you.
everybody.
Thank you, Judy.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.